What if time itself screamed and no one in the Star Trek universe could hear it, except one man who didn't belong there at all? A red blur tears through the fabric of reality, not across space, but across history itself. Stars distort, warp trails unravel, and entire timelines flicker like dying lights. On the bridge of the USS Enterprise, alarms erupt without cause. Sensors detect nothing, and everything, a presence that exists outside causality, a paradox given form. And then, just for a fraction of a second, Captain Picard sees it, a streak of yellow lightning moving faster than thought. Who or what could move so fast that even time cannot keep up? And why does it feel like this thing isn't just visiting their universe, but rewriting it? Because somewhere in the infinite corridors of the multiverse, Reverse Flash has found a new playground, and he is smiling. What if the fastest man alive became the fastest nightmare Starfleet has ever faced? The moment it begins, no one notices. Not at first. A minor fluctuation in subspace readings, a brief anomaly in the warp field, something even the most advanced Federation instruments dismiss as cosmic noise. But Data does not dismiss it. He cannot. There is a discrepancy, Data says calmly, though his golden eyes flicker with an intensity rare even for him. Temporal variance detected across multiple quantum layers. Picard leans forward. Explain. Before Data can answer, the stars outside the viewport stutter. Not move, not shift, stutter. Like frames of reality are being skipped. Worf's hand moves instinctively to his console. Captain's sensors are failing. No, Data replies, his voice tightening ever so slightly. They are not failing. They are being outpaced. Outpaced. That's when it happens. A blur of yellow lightning streaks across the bridge, not through space but through time. Crew members freeze mid-motion. A glass falls, suspended in the air. Even the hum of the ship seems to stretch into silence. Everything slows. Except one thing. Him. Eobard Thawne stands in the center of the Enterprise bridge, his red eyes glowing beneath the cowl. He looks around, amused. So this is what passes for the future, he mutters, almost disappointed. To him, everything is frozen. Picard, mid-command. Data, mid-calculation. Worf, mid-breath. Pathetic. He circles them, hands clasped behind his back, observing like a scientist studying insects. No speed force, no meta-humans, no one who can even perceive me, he whispers. How boring. But then he stops. Slowly, his head tilts. Data, the android's eyes, twitch, just slightly. Impossible. Thawne steps closer, intrigued. Well, that's new. Data's internal processors are racing, not fast enough to match Thawne, but fast enough to detect the distortion. To feel something moving between moments. Unidentified temporal entity. Data's voice strains against the frozen time. Detected. Thawne's smile widens. Oh, this just got interesting. In an instant, he vibrates his hand and phases it through Data's chests, topping just short of the android's core. Let's see how you handle a little reverse engineering. Time snaps back. The glass shatters on the floor. The hum of the Enterprise returns. The crew jolts, as if waking from a dream. Data collapses to one knee. Mr. Data, Picard shouts. Data looks up, his expression something dangerously close to confusion. I experienced an interruption, he says slowly. Something was here. Worf scans the room. No life signs detected, but Picard feels it. A chill, a presence that doesn't belong. Report, he orders. Data hesitates. I believe, Captain, we are dealing with an entity capable of moving beyond time itself. Elsewhere in the galaxy, stars begin to flicker out, not destroyed, but erased. Entire star systems vanish from records as if they never existed. Histories rewrite themselves. Civilizations blink in and out of existence. The Federation scrambles to respond. But how do you fight something that attacks yesterday? And in the shadows of subspace, Thawne runs. Faster than warp, faster than thought, faster than causality. He tests this new universe like a child breaking toys. He saves planets, just to destroy them seconds earlier. He whispers into the past of civilizations, planting chaos that blooms centuries later. And all the while, he searches, because there's something missing. No speed force, he mutters, skidding to a stop on the surface of a dying star. But I can feel it, echoes of it, buried in the fabric of this reality. His eyes narrow. If I can tap into it here. A sinister grin spreads across his face. I won't just control time. He looks out across the stars as they ripple and distort under his influence. I'll become it. Back on the Enterprise, Data begins constructing a theory, one that terrifies even him. If this entity continues to alter temporal events at this scale, it will not simply change our future, Data says. Picard's voice is steady, but his eyes betray the weight of the situation. What will it do, Mr. Data? Data looks up. It will erase it. Silence grips the bridge. Somewhere, unseen, Thawne laughs, because for the first time in his existence, he is in a universe where no one can stop him. Or so he thinks. What if the Federation's greatest strength, its mastery of time, became its greatest weakness? The moment Reverse Flash decided to weaponize it. The Enterprise drifts silently through space, but something is wrong, profoundly, disturbingly wrong. Not in the engines, not in the hull, not even in the stars outside. It's deeper than that. It's in the memory of reality itself. Picard stands in the ready room, staring at a star chart that refuses to stay the same. Constellations shift, borders redraw, entire sectors flicker in and out, as if undecided about their own existence. Computer, Picard says carefully, verify stellar cartography against Federation archives. There's a pause, a glitch, then the computer responds, unable to comply. Archive inconsistency detected. Inconsistency. Picard exhales slowly. Define inconsistency. Multiple conflicting historical records exist for the same regions of space. Temporal origin. Unknown. Before Picard can respond, the doors slide open. Data steps in, but something about him feels off. Captain, Data says, his tone precise yet strained. I believe the anomaly is no longer external. Picard turns. Explain. Data's golden eyes flicker faintly. I am experiencing overlapping memories, events that both did and did not occur. Picard's brow tightens, such as Data hesitates, something he rarely does. I recall the Klingon Empire as a peaceful ally, and simultaneously as an enemy we have never encountered. Both timelines appear equally valid. Picard feels it then, that quiet, creeping dread, not the fear of an enemy fleet, not the threat of destruction. Something far worse, uncertainty. On the bridge of the Enterprise, tension builds like a storm waiting to break. Worf stands rigid and tactical, his instincts screaming even if his senses remain silent. This is dishonorable, Worf mutters. An enemy that does not reveal itself. Perhaps, Data replies as he enters. It does not need to. Report, Picard commands as he steps onto the bridge. Data moves to the center, his voice calm but urgent. Captain, I believe we are not observing changes to the timeline. He pauses. We are inside them. Silence falls. What do you mean? Riker asks. Data gestures to the view screen. The entity we encountered, its movement is not limited to space. It is traversing temporal coordinates at speeds that exceed our capacity to measure. Worf frowns. Time travel is not unknown to the Federation. Correct, Data says. However, traditional temporal displacement involves transitioning between fixed points. This entity does not transition. He looks up. It overwrites. The word hangs in the air like a death sentence. Picard steps forward. You're saying it's not traveling through time, it's rewriting it as it moves. Yes, Captain. At that exact moment, the ship jolts violently. Report. Picard snaps. Massive temporal surge. Data announces. Origin point. Unknown. The view screen flashes space itself, rippling like water struck by an invisible force. And then everything changes. The Enterprise is no longer in Federation space. The stars are wrong. The configuration unfamiliar. The ship's insignia flickers for a split second. It isn't the Enterprise. It's something else. Something darker, more militarized. Then it snaps back. Crew members stagger as if waking from a nightmare they can't remember. What just happened? Riker demands. Data doesn't answer immediately. His processors race, trying to anchor reality before it shifts again. Captain, he says slowly, for approximately 0.7 seconds, we existed in an alternate timeline. Picard's voice lowers. Describe it. Data looks at him and, for the first time, there is something almost human in his expression. The Federation was at war with itself. A chill spreads across the bridge. Elsewhere outside time, outside Logixon runs, he skims across centuries like stepping stones, each footfall sending ripples through history. He watches civilizations rise and fall in the blink of an eye, and he laughs. Oh, this is too easy, he says, his voice echoing through the void between moments. He stops abruptly, standing in the ruins of a city that once gleamed with Federation ideals, or perhaps will, or perhaps never did. Such fragile order, Thorne muses, kicking a piece of debris that flickers in and out of existence. All it takes is a little push. Here he vanishes, and reappears centuries earlier, whispering into the ear of a key political figure. And suddenly the future looks very different. He runs again. To him, it's a game, a masterpiece. He isn't just breaking time, he's sculpting it. But then, something resists. Not strongly, not enough to stop him, but enough to notice. Thorne skids to a halt, his expression darkening. Interesting. Back on the Enterprise, Data's voice cuts through the tension. Captain, I believe the entity is targeting pivotal moments in Federation history, altering key events to create cascading timeline fractures. Picard crosses his arms. To what end? Data doesn't answer immediately. Control, he finally says, or something beyond it. Suddenly, alarms blare again. Another surge. Worf shouts, "Where?" Picard demands. Data's eyes widen. Earth. The word hits like a shockwave. Temporal origin point. San Francisco. Year. Data pauses, recalculating. 2-4-5. Picard's breath catches. That's the early days of Starfleet expansion. Riker finishes. If that moment is altered, Picard says quietly, the Federation may never exist. Data concludes. Without hesitation, Picard turns. Set course for Earth. Maximum warp. The Enterprise leaps into warp, but even as it does, reality flickers again, because Thorne is already there, standing in the past, waiting. And this time, he's not just observing, he's choosing. As the Enterprise races against an enemy that exists ahead, behind, and beyond them, one question lingers. What happens when you try to stop someone who has already won? What if the moment that defined the birth of the Federation was already corrupted before the Star Trek heroes even arrived to save it? The USS Enterprise bursts out of warp near Earth, but something feels wrong. Not immediately visible, not something scanners can fully define, but it's there like a shadow cast over history itself. Report, Picard orders, his voice sharp. Data's hands move rapidly across his console. Temporal fluctuations are intensifying. Earth's timeline is unstable. On the view screen, Earth appears, but it flickers, as if struggling to decide what version of itself should exist. Zoom in on San Francisco, Picard says. The image sharpens, and then glitches. For a split second, the skyline shifts, familiar structures vanish, replaced by something darker, more authoritarian. Starfleet headquarters is there, and then it isn't. Instead, a massive fortified complex looms in its place. Then it snaps back. Riker exhales slowly. We're already too late, aren't we? No, Picard replies firmly. Not yet, but even he isn't sure if that's true. Because somewhere, at some point in time, Reverse Flash has already begun rewriting the very foundation of this world. Temporal coordinates locked, Data announces. However, there is significant resistance. Resistance? Worf questions. Data nods. It appears certain events are resisting alteration. As if anchored, Picard's eyes narrow. Explain. Some moments in time possess a degree of temporal inertia, Data says. They are difficult to change. Important moments. Riker adds. Yes. Picard straightens. Then that's where we make our stand. He turns to the helm. Prepare for temporal insertion. Moments later, the Enterprise initiates a controlled time displacement, diving directly into the past. But as the ship crosses the threshold, something hits them. Not physically, not like a weapon, something deeper. A force that exists within time itself. The ship shudders violently. Lights flicker. Systems overload. Temporal turbulence. Data shouts. On the view screen, reality fractures into countless overlapping images, different versions of Earth, different histories, all colliding at once. And in the middle of it, a streak of yellow lightning. Watching them, smiling. Captain, Data says, his voice tight. The entity is aware of us. Too late to turn back. Hold course, Picard commands. The Enterprise punches through the distortion and arrives. San Francisco. But it's not the San Francisco they expected. The sky is darker. Ships patrol overhead Starfleet vessels, but modified, more aggressive in design. On the ground, civilians move under heavy surveillance. This is wrong, Riker says quietly. Data scans the environment. We have arrived in a partially altered timeline. Picard's voice hardens. Then we fix it. But before they can act, time stops completely. Every movement halts. Every sound vanishes. Except one. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, echoing across the frozen city. Thawne emerges from the stillness, walking casually through a world locked in place. His eyes glow as he surveys the Enterprise crew, all frozen mid-action. All this effort, he muses, circling them, just to chase me into the past. He stops in front of Picard, studying him. You're impressive, I'll give you that. Most people don't even realize I've already won. He leans closer, his voice a whisper only time itself can hear. But you actually came to stop me. A grin spreads across his face. That makes this so much more fun. He walks past them, his movements effortless in a universe that cannot keep up. You see, Captain Thawne continues, your Federation, it's built on moments. Fragile, precious little turning points. He gestures toward the city around them. Take one away, everything collapses. He pauses. And I've taken more than one. For a brief instant, something flickers in Picard's faint awareness, a resistance against the frozen time. Thawne notices, and his grin fades, just slightly. Well now, he murmurs, you're not entirely helpless, are you? He steps back. Let's change that. In a flash of yellow lightning, he vanishes, and time slams back into motion. The crew stumbles, as reality resumes. What happened? Worf demands. Data looks around, his senses overwhelmed. The entity was here, but I cannot determine its actions. Picard steadies himself, his mind racing. No, he says quietly, but I can feel them. He looks out at the altered city. He's already made his move. Suddenly, alarms erupt across the Enterprise. Captain, Data calls out. Major timeline divergence detected. Where? Data hesitates. Everywhere. The sky darkens further. Ships above begin changing mid-flight, transforming into more aggressive designs. Their insignias shift into something unfamiliar, something hostile. Riker's voice tightens. What did he do? Data's answer comes like a hammer. He has altered a key event in Starfleet's formation. Picard turns sharply. Which event? Data looks at him. The first deep space exploration initiative. Silence falls. That's the foundation of everything, Riker says. Yes, Data replies. And now, he continues, his voice almost hollow. It never happened. The consequences ripple instantly. Starfleet is no longer an organization of exploration. It is an empire. And the Enterprise is no longer a vessel of peace. It is a weapon. Picard looks down at his uniform, and for a split second, it changes, darkens, becomes something else, then flickers back, but not completely. Because the question is no longer what Thawne has done. It's how much of it can still be undone. And somewhere, just beyond the edge of time, Thawne watches, waiting, because this is the moment he's been building toward. The moment where even hope begins to fracture, and as the Enterprise crew struggles to hold onto a reality that's slipping through their fingers, one terrifying truth becomes clear. They are no longer trying to stop him. They are trying to survive him. What if the crew of the Enterprise began to forget who they were? Not because of fear, but because their past was being erased faster than they could remember it. The city below hums with a cold, unfamiliar order. San Francisco, once the symbolic heart of exploration and unity, now feels like a controlled machine. Armed patrols march in perfect synchronization. Civilians move with quiet obedience. Above, warships bearing a distorted Starfleet insignia glide through the sky like silent predators. On the bridge, something far more dangerous than enemy fire begins to unfold. Confusion. Captain Riker's voice falters, just slightly. Why are we here? Picard turns sharply. What do you mean? Number one. Riker blinks, as if waking from a dream. We were responding to something. But he stops. Because the memory isn't there anymore. Data steps forward, his expression focused but strained. Captain, I am detecting ongoing temporal degradation within the crew's cognitive patterns. Speak plainly, Mr. Data, Picard says. We are forgetting, Data replies. Silence grips the bridge. Worf growls under his breath. Impossible. Klingon memory does not fail so easily. Data turns to him. This is not a natural failure. Our personal timelines are being rewritten in real time. As history changes, so do we. Picard feels it, then a subtle emptiness in his mind, a missing detail, something important. Gone. What have we lost? He asks quietly. Data hesitates. I am uncertain, which suggests a loss has already occurred. That's when the view screen flickers again. For a split second, the Enterprise bridge transforms. Not the sleek, diplomatic vessel they know, but something harsher, darker. Tactical displays dominate every surface. Weapons systems outnumber scientific instruments, and the crew, they're different. Worf stands taller, armored, his expression colder. Riker's posture is rigid, militaristic. Even Picard, no, that image vanishes before it can fully form. But the feeling remains. We're changing, Riker whispers. No, Picard says firmly, forcing clarity into his voice. We're being changed. And somewhere within the fractures of time, Reverse Flash is still running, still rewriting, still winning. Far beyond the perception of the Enterprise, Thorne moves through pivotal moments like a ghost rewriting history with every step. He stands now in a pristine Starfleet facility years before its corruption. Scientists discuss warp theory, exploration routes, peaceful first contact missions, hope, optimism, everything he despises. He walks among them, unseen, unheard. You've built a future on cooperation, he mutters, on trust. His eyes narrow. Let's see how that holds up. In a blur, he moves altering data logs, whispering ideas into vulnerable minds, nudging key decisions just slightly off course. A scientist pauses mid-thought, suddenly considering a more defensive application of warp technology. A commander re-evaluates a mission, choosing caution over exploration. Tiny changes, but Thorne knows the truth. Tiny changes become massive consequences. He steps back, watching the ripple begin, and he smiles. Back on the Enterprise, Data's voice cuts through the growing disorientation. Captain, if we do not anchor ourselves to a stable point in time, we risk total temporal assimilation. Picard grips the arm of his chair. Define temporal assimilation. Data meets his gaze. We will become native to this altered timeline. Our memories, identities, and purpose will fully align with its history. Riker stiffens. You mean, we'll forget everything we were? Yes, Worf snarls. I will not forget who I am. Data's tone remains calm, but there's an urgency beneath it. This is not a matter of willpower, Lieutenant, it is a matter of existence. Picard steps forward, his voice resolute. Then we find a way to resist. But how? Riker asks. Data processes rapidly. We must locate a temporal constanta moment or object unaffected by the changes, something outside the influence of the entity. Before anyone can respond, the ship trembles again. Another surge. Worf shouts. This one is stronger, more violent. The view screen fractures into multiple overlapping realities, each one darker than the last. In one, the Federation is gone entirely. In another, Earth is a barren wasteland. And in yet another, the Enterprise itself fires upon a defenseless alien world. Picard recoils slightly at the sight. No, Data's voice is quiet. These are not possibilities, Captain. He looks up. They are outcomes. The weight of that realization crashes down on the crew. Every version of the future is collapsing. Every path leads to ruin, unless a sudden realization flashes across Data's mind. Captain, there may be one constant. Picard turns. What is it? Data hesitates, as if the answer itself is fragile. The entity. Silence. You mean Thorne? Riker asks. Yes, Data confirms. He exists outside the timeline he is altering. He is the only fixed point in this entire equation. Picard's eyes narrow. Then he's also the key to stopping it. At that exact moment, a streak of yellow lightning tears across the bridge. Faster than before. Closer. This time, they see it. Just barely. A blur. A presence. A nightmare moving too fast to comprehend. Worf fires instinctively, but the blast hits nothing. Thorne's laughter echoes faintly, distorted by the speed at which it travels. You're catching on. His voice whispers, everywhere and nowhere at once. Picard steps forward, defiant. Show yourself. For a brief moment, time slows. Not completely, just enough. Thorne appears at the edge of perception, his form flickering like a glitch in reality. You want to stop me, he says, his voice dripping with amusement. Then try to keep up. And then he's gone again. Faster than ever, stronger than ever. And now he knows they're adapting, which means he'll adapt faster. As the Enterprise struggles to hold on to its identity, one question begins to burn through the chaos. How do you defeat an enemy who evolves faster than time itself? What if the only way to stop the fastest being in existence was to think faster than time itself, and what if even that wasn't enough? The bridge of the Enterprise feels smaller now. Not physically but mentally. Every second carries weight. Every thought feels like it could be erased before it finishes forming. Picard stands at the center, his posture steady, but his mind racing against an invisible current, pulling everything apart. We cannot outrun him, he says. We cannot outfight him. Riker crosses his arms. Then what's left? Data steps forward, his voice precise but carrying a new exigency sharpened by necessity. We must outthink him. Worf scoffs slightly. He moves faster than thought itself. Not entirely, Data replies. He moves faster than biological cognition, but not faster than computation. If the computation is prepared in advance, Picard turns. Explain. Data's eyes flicker as he processes millions of possibilities in fractions of a second. Reverse Flash operates by exploiting causality. He alters events before we can react. Therefore, a reactive strategy is ineffective. Riker nods slowly. So we go proactive. Yes, Data confirms. We must predict his actions before he takes them. Worf leans forward. You would anticipate the movements of a being that exists outside time. Data pauses. Yes, silence. Not disbelief. Just the weight of how impossible that sounds. Picard breaks it. Then we begin immediately. Data moves to the central console, linking himself directly to the Enterprise's main computer. Streams of data flood across the screen's historical records, temporal anomalies, probability matrices. He is not acting randomly. Data explains. Each alteration targets key inflection points, moments of high impact within the timeline. Riker steps closer. So there's a pattern. Yes, and patterns can be predicted. Even his, Picard asks. Data looks up. We must try. As Data's calculations intensify, something extraordinary begins to happen. The chaotic flickering of reality slows, not stopping but stabilizing just enough for patterns to emerge. On the view screen, a map of time itself begins to form, branching pathways, fractured timelines, converging points. Captain, Data says, I believe I have identified his next target. Picard's voice sharpens, where Data hesitates. Not where, when. A beat. Year 2161. Riker's eyes widen. The founding of the Federation. Worf growls. If that moment falls, everything falls. Picard nods grimly. Then that's where we go. But before he can give the order, the ship trembles again, harder than ever. Temporal surge incoming. Data warns, and then everything freezes. Again, but this time, it's different. The stillness isn't absolute. Picard can move, barely, like pushing through an invisible ocean. Riker shifts slightly, confusion on his face. Worf growls as he forces his arm upward inch by inch. And Data is fully active. His eyes lock forward. Because standing in front of them, fully visible now, is Thorn. For the first time, Reverse Flash is not just a blur. He's there, smiling, clapping slowly. Well done, he says, his voice clear in the frozen world. You actually made me stop. Picard forces himself upright, every movement a battle. You wanted our attention, he says. Now you have it. Thorn tilts his head. Oh, I've always had it. You just couldn't perceive me. He walks casually across the bridge, inspecting them like pieces on a board. But now, you're starting to understand the game. Data steps forward. You are targeting pivotal historical events to destabilize the timeline. Thorn grins. Not just destabilize. He leans closer. Control. Riker manages a step forward. Why? What do you gain from destroying this universe? Thorn's smile fades slightly. Destroying, he repeats. He chuckles. Oh no, you misunderstand. His eyes glow brighter. I'm perfecting it. A chill runs through the bridge. Picard narrows his eyes. By turning it into a militarized empire. Thorn shrugs. Peace is inefficient. Conflict drives evolution. Your Federation, it's soft, fragile. He gestures around them. I'm making it stronger. Worf snarls. You dishonor everything we stand for. Thorn laughs. And what exactly is that? Exploration, diplomacy. He steps closer to Worf. Tell me, Klingon, how many wars has your precious Federation fought to maintain that illusion of peace? Worf says nothing, because deep down, he knows the answer. Thorn straightens. I'm not creating chaos, he says. I'm revealing truth. Data's voice cuts through the tension. You are imposing your own perspective onto an entire timeline. Of course I am, Thorn replies instantly. That's what power is. Picard finally steps forward, standing face to face with him. And what happens when you run out of worlds to fix? He asks quietly for the first time. Thorn pauses. Just a fraction, but it's there. A crack. Then he smiles again, but it's sharper now, colder. I never run out, he says. In a flash, he moves, appearing behind Data. His hand vibrates, phasing into the android's chest. You see, he continues, I don't just change the future. His voice drops to a whisper. I erase the parts I don't like. Data's eyes widen slightly. Then he stops, completely. Frozen mid-motion, Picard shouts, struggling against the slowed time. Data. Thorne steps back, admiring his work. Let's see how well you predict without your calculator. He turns, preparing to leave, but Picard speaks again. You're wrong. Thorne pauses, slowly turns his head. Picard's voice is strained, but unyielding. You think you're in control, but all you've done is create resistance. Thorne's eyes narrow. From who? He asks. Picard meets his gaze. From us. A beat. Then Thorne smiles. Good. And in a burst of yellow lightning, he's gone. Time slams back into motion. Data collapses. The crew rushes to him. Status, Picard demands. Data's systems flicker violently. I'm experiencing severe temporal corruption. His voice glitches. Predictive model. Incomplete. Riker looks up, fear in his eyes. We've lost him. Picard clenches his fists, because now they're blind, and Thorne is faster than ever. As the Enterprise struggles to recover, one terrifying realization settles in: their best chance to stop him is already gone. So the question becomes, what happens when the only mind capable of predicting the impossible begins to fail? What if the one being who could still calculate the future was no longer sure which future was real? Data lies on the deck of the Enterprise bridge, motionless but not inactive. Inside him, something far more chaotic than physical damage is unfolding. His neural net flickers between possibilities, each one overwriting the last before it can stabilize. Picard kneels beside him. Mr. Data, respond. For a moment, nothing happens. Then Data's eyes snap open, but they don't focus. Captain, he says, his voice layered as if multiple versions of him are speaking at once. I am experiencing simultaneous timelines. Riker crouches beside him. Can you stabilize? I am attempting to, Data replies, his tone glitching between calm and fractured. However, the variables are no longer consistent. Worf looks around the bridge, tense. Explain. Data slowly sits up, his movements mechanical but uncertain. In one timeline, he says, we have already stopped the entity. A pause. In another, we never existed. The words hang in the air like a verdict. Picard steadies himself. And this timeline, Data looks at him. I cannot confirm it is the primary one. Silence. The ground beneath them, reality itself, feels less like a foundation and more like shifting sand. Then we create certainty, Picard says firmly. Riker glances at him. How? Picard stands, his resolve sharpening. We take control of the one thing he cannot fully dominate. Worf frowns. And what is that? Picard turns to Data. Choice. Far beyond the Enterprise, within the fractures of time, Reverse Flash slows his run for the first time since entering this universe. Not because he's tired, because he's thinking. Something has changed. They're adapting faster than expected, Thorne mutters, pacing across a moment frozen between centuries. That android, even damaged, he's still calculating. He clenches his fist. I underestimated them. That thought alone irritates him. He doesn't underestimate. He dominates. Always. And yet, he looks out across the broken strands of the timeline, watching as certain events resist his influence more strongly than before. They're anchoring themselves, he realizes. A slow smile spreads across his face. Good, because that gives him something new to break. In a flash, he vanishes again, heading not forward in time, but backward. Further than before. Deeper. Toward. Something older. Something foundational. Back on the Enterprise, Data struggles to his feet, supported by Riker. Captain, he says, his voice stabilizing slightly. I believe I can still predict his next action. Picard steps closer. Where? Data's eyes flicker rapidly. He is no longer targeting major historical events. Data says, he is moving toward origin points. Worf tilts his head. Origin points. Data nods. The earliest moments that define the trajectory of entire civilizations. Riker's expression tightens. You mean he's going even further back? Yes. Picard's voice lowers. How far? Data looks at him. Before the Federation, a chill spreads across the bridge. Before Earth's unification, Data continues. Before first contact, Picard's eyes widen slightly. If he alters those events, the Federation will not merely change, Data says. It will never exist. The weight of that realization crashes down. Then we follow him, Picard says immediately. Data hesitates. Captain, there is a risk. Picard meets his gaze. There's always a risk. This is different, Data replies. The further back we go, the less stable our temporal anchors become. We may lose all connection to our original timeline. Riker exhales slowly, meaning we could get stuck there. Or worse, Data adds, we could become part of the altered history permanently. Worf steps forward. Then we fight our way back. Data looks at him. There may be nothing to return to. Silence. Picard considers this for only a moment. Then we proceed, because doing nothing is no longer an option. As the Enterprise prepares for another temporal jump, the air itself feels heavier, like the universe is resisting their attempt to correct it. Temporal coordinates set, Data announces. Targeting mid-21st century. Moments before first contact, Riker glances at the viewscreen. That's humanity's turning point. Yes, Data confirms. If that event is disrupted, Earth's future diverges completely. Picard takes a steady breath. Engage. The Enterprise plunges into the temporal stream once more, but this time the journey is far more violent. Reality doesn't just ripple, it fights back. The ship shakes uncontrollably. Systems flicker. Crew members brace as the fabric of time itself seems to tear around them. Structural integrity at 60%. Worf shouts. Temporal anchors destabilizing. Data adds. On the viewscreen, fragments of different eras collide: prehistoric Earth, futuristic battlefields, alien worlds, all overlapping in a chaotic storm. And in the center of it, a streak of yellow lightning. Faster than ever, closer than ever. He's here, Riker says. No one needs confirmation. Because suddenly the ship stops, dead, suspended in a void between moments. Everything goes silent. Then a voice, slow, calm, dangerous. You really don't know when to quit, do you? Thawne appears again, clearer than ever before. His presence no longer just a distortion, but a force pressing against reality itself. He walks toward them, unhurried. You're chasing me into the past now, he says, almost impressed. That's bold. Picard steps forward. We're ending this. Thawne chuckles. No, he says, you're not. He gestures around them, the collapsing temporal stream, the instability, the chaos. You're already losing. Data steps beside Picard, his voice steadier now. Your pattern has changed, he says. You are targeting origin points to ensure irreversible timeline collapse. Thawne smiles. Exactly. Riker clenches his fists. Why go that far? Thawne's expression darkens slightly. Because, he says, if I erase the beginning. He looks directly at them. There's nothing left to fix. A beat. Then he steps closer. And nothing left to stop me. The tension becomes unbearable. Because this is it. The edge of everything. And Thawne is about to take one more step. One that could erase the entire future before it even begins. But just before he moves, Data speaks again. Not necessarily. Thawne pauses, turns. Data's eyes lock onto his. If you erase the beginning, Data says, you also erase the conditions that allowed you to arrive here. For the first time, Thawne doesn't smile. A paradox, a risk, a possibility he cannot fully control. The silence stretches, because now even he has to think, and that changes everything. What if the one thing even Reverse Flash feared wasn't defeat, but the possibility that he might erase himself from existence? For the first time since he entered this universe, Thawne doesn't move. Not because he can't, because he's calculating. The temporal storm around them rages, fragments of history colliding, futures collapsing, entire civilizations blinking in and out like dying stars. And yet, in the center of it all, there is stillness, a moment of hesitation. Data stands firm, though the strain within him is visible. His systems flicker, barely holding together as he continues to process impossible variables. You rely on causality as a weapon, Data says, his voice steady despite the chaos. But causality is a closed system. Remove enough foundational events, and you destabilize your own existence. Thawne tilts his head slightly, studying him. You're saying I'd erase myself, he replies. Yes. A faint smile forms on Thawne's face, but it's different now. Not amused, curious. And you're sure about that? He asks. Data hesitates. No, he admits. But neither are you. Silence. That's the problem. For someone like Thawne, someone who exists in absolute certainty, who sees time as something to dominate rather than question, uncertainty is the one variable he cannot outrun. Picard steps forward, seizing the moment. You've been treating this universe like a broken machine, he says. Something to fix, to perfect. Thawne glances at him, expression unreadable. But you didn't create it, Picard continues. And you don't understand it. A dangerous edge creeps into Thorne's voice. I understand it better than you ever will. Do you? Picard counters. Because if you did, you'd know that perfection isn't achieved by control. Riker adds, it's achieved by balance. Worf steps forward, his voice like steel. And by honor. Thorne laughs, but it's quieter now, less certain. Honor, balance. He repeats, you're still clinging to those ideals. He looks around at the fractured timeline, the chaos he's created. This is reality, he says. This is what your balance leads to. Instability, weakness. Data speaks again. Or adaptation. Thorne's eyes narrow. Data takes another step forward. You have forced this timeline to evolve under extreme conditions, and it is responding. He gestures to the temporal storm, not by collapsing, but by resisting. For a brief moment, something shifts in Thorne's expression, because he sees it too. The fractures in time aren't just breaking, they're pushing back subtly, slowly, but undeniably. Picard senses it. You thought you were the only constant, he says, but you were wrong. Thorne's gaze sharpens. Explain. Picard steps closer, his voice unwavering. Choice, he says. The same force that built this federation is now resisting you. Riker nods. Every change you make forces new decisions, new outcomes. Worf adds, new warriors. Data finishes the thought. New variables. The realization lands. For the first time, Thorne isn't just facing opponents. He's facing a system that adapts to him. A timeline that refuses to be controlled. And that is something he cannot easily predict. His smile fades. Then I'll just have to try harder, he says coldly. In an instant, he moves faster than ever before. The temporal storm explodes outward as he accelerates, diving deeper into the past than he ever has in this universe. The Enterprise shudders violently. He's going further back. Data shouts. Beyond first contact, beyond recorded human history. Picard grips the console. Where is he going? Data's eyes widen. I cannot determine the exact point, only that it is foundational. Riker's voice tightens. Foundational to what? Data looks at him. Everything. The implication hits like a shockwave. If Thorne reaches that point, there may be nothing left to save. Then we follow him. Picard orders immediately. Worf hesitates. Captain, the further we go, the less we exist. Picard turns to him. Then we make every second count. The Enterprise prepares for one final jump. Systems flicker. Temporal anchors strain. The ship itself feels like it's being pulled apart by the sheer weight of the moment. Coordinates locked, Data says, though his voice is strained to the breaking point. Warning, probability of successful return, less than 3%. Riker exhales. I've heard worse. Picard places a hand on the command chair. Engage. The ship plunges forward, not just through time, but toward the origin of everything they know. The journey is unlike anything before. There are no stars, no planets, just raw, unformed reality moments before history takes shape. And in the distance, a streak of yellow lightning, waiting. The Enterprise emerges into a space that feels incomplete, unfinished. Time here isn't linear, it's potential. And standing at the center of it all is Thorne. He turns slowly as they arrive. You really followed me all the way here, he says, almost impressed. Picard steps forward. This ends now. Thorne looks around at the formless expanse. No, he says softly. This is where it begins. He raises his hand, energy crackling, time itself bending around him. Do you have any idea what this place is? He asks. Data scans rapidly, his systems barely holding together. This is a pretemporal state, he says. A point before the timeline fully crystallizes. Thorne smiles. Exactly. He looks back at them. From here, I don't just change history. His eyes glow brighter than ever before. I write it. The threat is absolute. Because if Thorne acts now, there will be no timeline left to fix. No Federation, no Enterprise, no future, only his design. And as the crew stands on the edge of existence itself, one final question hangs in the void. How do you fight an enemy who is about to become time itself? What if the only way to save the future was to let go of it completely and trust that something greater than control would rebuild it? The void before time trembles. Not with destruction, with possibility. The Enterprise hangs on the edge of existence, its hull flickering as if unsure whether it belongs here at all. Systems are failing, timelines are unraveling, and the very concept of now is beginning to collapse. At the center of it all stands Reverse Flashcom, focused, unstoppable. "You're too late," Thorn says, his voice echoing across the unformed reality. "This is where everything begins, and where I take control." Picard steps forward, though even his form distorts with every movement. "Control is not the same as creation," he says. Thorn smirks. "It is when you're fast enough." In an instant, he moves, not forward, not backward, everywhere. Yellow lightning fractures across the void as he begins weaving through raw time, shaping it, bending it, forcing it into alignment with his will. Stars begin to form, then collapse. Civilizations flicker into existence, then vanish. History tries to write itself, and Thorn overwrites it, again, and again, and again. He's stabilizing a timeline around himself. Data shouts, barely holding his systems together. If he completes the cycle, it will lock permanently. Riker grips the console. "Then we stop him now." "We can't," Worf growls. "He is beyond reach." Picard watches the chaos unfold, and then something shifts in his expression. Not fear, not desperation. Understanding. "Mr. Data," Picard says quietly. Data turns to him. "If he becomes the constant," Picard continues, "then we must become the variable he cannot control." Data processes rapidly, and then he understands. "Captain, that would require us to..." "Yes," Picard interrupts. "To let go." Riker looks between them. "Let go of what?" Picard turns to his crew, his voice calm, steady, absolute. Everything. Silence. Even the chaos seems to pause for a fraction of a second. "You said it yourself." Data Picard continues. "Choice is the one force he cannot fully predict." Data nods slowly. "Yes, but without a stable timeline, our choices become undefined." "Exactly," Picard says. Worf frowns. "You would embrace chaos." Picard meets his gaze. "I would trust it." Riker exhales sharply. "That's a hell of a gamble." Picard gives the faintest hint of a smile. "So is everything worth believing in." Behind them, Thorn's voice cuts through the void. "You're running out of time," he calls. Picard turns back, his expression resolute. "No," he says, "we're giving it back." And then he gives the order. "Computer, disengage temporal anchors." The ship hesitates. "Warning, temporal anchors are critical for maintaining crew existence." "I am aware," Picard replies. "Do it." A beat. Then temporal anchors disengaged. The effect is immediate. The Enterprise begins to dissolve, not physically, but conceptually. Its form flickers, its structure unraveling into pure possibility. Riker grips the console as his own hands begin to fade. "This better work." Worf stands tall, unflinching even as his form destabilizes. "Today is a good day to defy time." Data looks at Picard, his voice softer now. "Captain, if this fails..." Picard meets his gaze. "It won't, because it has to work." As the Enterprise and its crew release their hold on a fixed timeline, something extraordinary happens. They stop being part of history and become part of possibility. Thorn notices immediately. His movements falter just slightly. "What are you doing?" he demands. For the first time he doesn't understand. Picard's voice echoes not from a single point, but from everywhere at once. "We're choosing," he says. And suddenly the timeline fractures, not under Thorn's control, but against it. Every choice, every possibility, every alternate path begins to surge forward simultaneously. A universe not defined by one outcome, but by infinite ones. Thorn runs faster, trying to regain control, rewriting, reshaping, forcing the timeline back into a singular path. But now there are too many. "You can't do this," he shouts, his voice cracking with something unfamiliar. Not anger, fear. "You're breaking it." "No," Picard's voice replies. "We're freeing it." The infinite possibilities collide not chaotically, but harmoniously. A balance begins to form, one not dictated by speed or control, but by the natural flow of cause and effect. Thorn pushes harder, faster, trying to overwrite them all, but for the first time he can't keep up, because he's no longer fighting a timeline. He's fighting choice itself, and choice is infinite. The yellow lightning begins to fracture. His movements become unstable, impossible, he whispers. Data's voice joins the chorus. "You sought to become the constant," he says, "but you forgot. Constants can be broken." Thorn stumbles just for a fraction of a second, but here, that's all it takes. The timeline snaps, not into chaos, but into balance. A single, stable flow of history, restored but forever changed. Thorn is caught in the collapse. His connection to the fractured timelines severed. "No," he roars, reaching out as the speed around him fades. "You can't take this from me." But it's already gone. The void fades, time reforms, history rebuilds itself, not perfectly, but naturally. And as the light of a restored universe shines through, Thorn is pulled into the current, not erased, not destroyed, but trapped, a prisoner of the very timeline he tried to control. The Enterprise reappears in orbit above Earth, San Francisco below, restored to its familiar form. The sky is clear, the ships are peaceful, the future intact. On the bridge, the crew regains their footing, their forms stabilizing once more. Riker exhales deeply. Did we win? Data looks around, scanning. The timeline has stabilized, he says. The Federation exists as it should. Worf nods. The enemy is gone. Picard steps forward, looking out at Earth. No, he says quietly. Not gone. Data turns to him. Captain Picard's gaze remains fixed on the horizon, contained because somewhere, within the flow of time, Reverse Flash still exists, still running, still searching, but no longer in control. Picard clasps his hands behind his back. Set course, he says. Let's see what the future holds. The Enterprise turns, gliding peacefully through space once more. But as the stars stretch into warp, a faint flicker of yellow lightning appears for just a split second, gone as quickly as it came. A reminder that time is never truly safe, and some forces never stop running. The end.